I'm Marcus Timms. I'm Marcus Simpson. I'm the co-founder of FuturePrint, and thank you so much for joining us today. Two gentlemen here, clearly of gelato, and involved in gelato in some way, shape, or form. We're going to get onto a formal introduction in a moment, but one of the things that Henrik asked me, which I thought was a good thing to say, he said, "What do you want to get from this?" And I said, "Well, actually, what I want to get from this is people to leave feeling enlightened, inspired." Then we had a little chat around kind of one of the key themes of gelato and also his life, its impact, and what we're going to be talking about is transforming the print industry with gelato and what they're doing, which I think is really inspiring and hugely refreshing because it's so different. Like I said to the guys, Drupal really, for me, one of the standouts with gelato. I think gelato, and in particular, we're going to be talking about GelatoConnect, really disrupted the typical narrative there. And usually you go to that show and it's full of heavy metal, and that steals the show. Heavy metal machines, of course. But this time it's like, no, this has got some different things going on here. And I think the storytelling Gelato achieved and the impact they made at that event was really quite inspiring and, as I said, refreshing. But we're not going to be talking about Trooper because last week the gentlemen here were involved in an event of their own in Madrid. So we're going to be talking about their Gelato Summit and some of the themes that came from that. So I'll introduce the guys now. So today we're joined by two industry leaders, Rick Bellamy, who's got up super early today because he's in Seattle and he looks incredibly fresh and sprightly. So thank you for joining us, Rick Bellamy, Managing Director of Inflecton, a print production consulting group. He's also fractional COO at Bent Graphics, a leading producer in Georgia, USA. And also joining us is Henrik Müller-Hansen, who is the founder and CEO of Gelato. So welcome to this podcast, gentlemen.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it.
Actually,
Thank
it's
you
a
for having
webinar. Actually, it's a webinar, but I just called it a podcast. But we're going to be running this later as a podcast. But slight error on my part. Well, anyway, as I've already said, Gelato hosted its summit, GelatoConnect Summit in Madrid last week, and hundreds of print leaders attended from around the world. I guess like a summit is really a gathering of leaders. That's its core definition, with really a purpose and an outcome that's action oriented. And so we're going to hear what those kind of actions and themes were soon. The summit, as I said, was a meeting of minds, if you will. The key discussion centered on print innovation, industry transformation, and the forces driving sustainable growth. Rick and Henrik were both at that event, and today we're going to dive into some of the key takeaways from it and explore how it's shaping the future of print production. But before we begin, just take a moment to perhaps highlight Henrik and Rick's work and their perspectives on the evolving print landscape, because it's ever evolving and it's more rapidly evolving than ever. So, Henrik, before we get onto the summit, can you perhaps orient us a bit more to GelatoConnect? Because Gelato had a life before GelatoConnect. So let's talk and focus a bit on GelatoConnect. We've heard about that and want to hear a bit more. What inspired the kind of things that inspired you to create GelatoConnect, and how's the platform evolved, perhaps to address the needs of the industry in 2025?
That's a lot of words and a lot of introduction for me. So
Mm.
if I boil it down, I mean, Gelato as a company, I don't want to make this chat or this webinar about me. I don't want to really make it about Gelato, to be honest with you. I want to make it about the industry. I want to speak about the enormous opportunity that the industry stands before. And we hopefully, we believe, have a role to play in making that happen. But what inspired me, if I just start and just take that, what inspired me was that I was fortunate enough to work with a person named Jan Stenbeck. Jan is the person behind Vodafone, Millicom, Metro International, Tele2, like 5 unicorns and 70 other companies. And I worked side by side with him for a couple of years after university. And one of the things that he often said is, if you can find an industry that is giant in size, inefficient in terms of allocating effectively the capacity that it has access to, where there is no global software platform, giant demand from consumers, from companies all across the planet, and you can build that software and you can connect those idle assets, you have a really interesting journey ahead. And so after 6-7 years, I left this group, or Kinnevik as the group was called, as the CEO of Tele2 Norway, which was about a plus $400 million company. I had no clue what to do. I just went through all the industries in the world along those dimensions. And I came to one of the industries that most people think is the most boring, probably dying industry, and that's printing. And what people don't understand, it's the opposite on all dimensions. Because if you look at the industry from two vectors, one is going down, which is offset, litho, but one is growing exponentially, which is digital. And why is that? We're going to speak a lot about that during the webinar today. But the digital print industry has basically added 3 music industries since I started the company. People think printing is dying. People has never been growing as fast as it is today, but you need to speak about digital printing. So how can we give that opportunity to produce products that are highly personalized, on demand, across mega cities, across the planet? This is really what GelatoConnect is about. And that's why I think, and now I'm slowly handing it over to you, Rick, why Rick feels that it is exciting to work with Gelato, also supporting and representing Bennett Graphics. But Rick, over to you.
Yeah, for me, this is a highly transformational time in the print industry, and Gelato is helping to empower that. And when you think about why do I say it's transformational? The way we're accepting orders, the kinds of orders we're accepting and producing are changing really rapidly. They're no longer 30,000 shipped to a general warehouse and then fulfilled out. It's, to Henrik's point, it's a digital order of 12 or 10 or 5 or 1. And back at RPI, when we were pioneering these small orders, it was clear that the only real way to do that was through machine-assisted lean manufacturing. There was no software to help us do that. So we had to write it ourselves. And quite frankly, it was time-consuming, expensive, and wasn't particularly easy to use. Today, we have GelatoConnect, which is giving me that platform that I can utilize to create micro orders without all of that expense. And quite frankly, they move much faster than any of my teams ever could. So, when you think about how we're accepting orders today, back then it was just the photo sector. Today, it's marketing automation, it's e-commerce, it's the creator economy, and increasingly web to print storefronts. So this is a really exciting time as the shifts in ordering continues to move forward.
I would just add on that, one thing that I've been reflecting a lot upon, Rick and Marcus, is, Netflix moved in 2007 from shipping out physical DVDs to streaming. I can tell you with all due certainty, there were not many analysts that thought that was a good idea. They bet on the fact that broadband and high-speed internet connections would improve almost on a weekly basis, which was completely right. Now, with no further analogies to Gelato, I would say that this. When I started this company in 2007, we launched in 2008, I made a big bet, which was we shall never, ever connect to the offset industry or the litho industry in our production network. And fortunately for us, every single month, year, the digital print capacity, quality, output, predictability improved by an order of magnitude. So in a way, we bet on a vision. And the vision was that consumers will want more and more personalized, and the digital production power will improve year by year, which has happened. And then you ask, why did you move into GelatoConnect? It wasn't actually pushed by us. It was pulled by the network production partners, the PSPs. They came to me 6-7 years ago and said, listen, it is hyper efficient what you've built end to end. We want to use it not only for gelato orders, but for all of our orders. And so that was really, the background.
Yeah. And it's a story of you adapting as well, isn't it? So you had a core business model and it's moved forward. Software's got some more sophisticated. Demand's got, consumers have got involved, and there's a creator economy. It's kind of like being able to see that and move with it. And I think that's really exciting. The other thing that is, I think, really, really cool with this is it's really giving power to the printer, isn't it? Like you said, Rick, before you'd have to make your own software and do your own thing. And now it's like someone's done all the hard work already and it's proven as a model and it works and it's quite intuitive and easy to use. So we'll find out a bit more about that. So as we move further, perhaps into 2025, what really do you see as the top market opportunities for print service providers, perhaps in the sort of realm of personalization and micro orders?
Rick, you want to start?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned in the intro, right, how we're accepting orders has me really excited, right? We've got marketing automation, we got storefronts. It's changing how we interact with our customers. So the days of salespeople playing golf and going out to lunch with print buyers to get a job is gone, right? That's the people who are buying print today don't care about playing golf or having lunch with an old print guy. So they're increasingly signing contracts that develop multi-channel programs with their print partners. And that shift in ordering is changing the second big opportunity, which is a focus on automation. So you think about the changes in orders are driving repeatable programs. And often today, we think of things and produce them in the shop as an order, when in fact it's a product category that could be repeatable. And by definition, creating that automation requires repeating product categories. It also requires great software. So, and today, increasingly, the software you use better be driven by AI. And if you're not blown away by the changes that are happening in AI, you're not paying attention, quite frankly. And so, when you think about how do I keep up, you need a partner who's going to keep up and allows you to focus on automating your production all the way through the process, because today's customers are increasingly focused on price, and at the same time, our cost is going up. So you got to be more efficient in order to be one of the winners in this market. I think my third area of super excitement is one that's maybe counterintuitive in the US right now, in terms of our current administration, but sustainability is still a key factor despite changes in US political winds. Buyers and the consumers of print products are increasingly young people, and about 75% of those people under 40 say that they make their purchase decisions based on the sustainability of the products that they're buying. So, and if you're in the EU, Canada, or Australia, it's regulatory, and increasingly you will have that in the US too. So I think sustainability is another key one, which, it turns out a big part of that is producing locally and sourcing locally, and Connect helps create that. So those are my three big items in 2025 that, I really think that the industry is transforming, and it's time to get on and be one of the winners, quite frankly.
Yeah. Go on, Henrik.
No, I was just thinking that a couple of reflections on what has been said. When I started working, and again with Jan Stenbeck, I also worked with a person named Lars-Johan Jarnheimer. He has impacted me massively. He's now the chairman of IKEA. He always began every discussion like this with the consumer, with the end consumer. And then we worked our way backwards. And I think what we in the industry, just generally in the industry, I think we speak too much about machines. I think we speak too much about printing, and I don't think we speak enough about consumers. And probably some of the people on the webinar will think, well, that might be true for others, but not for me. And then that's great for you. But I have heard a lot of machine talk since I joined this industry. And what I also have heard is the use of the word printing. I have two sisters, and if I say I'm in the print industry, or when I told them I'm going into the print industry, they prayed for me. But actually, if I would say I'm operating in the production on demand industry, and we are able to produce most of what you have in your home, and in 2 to 3 to 4 years with 3D printing or additive manufacturing, we are looking at a completely new world when it comes to enabling and empowering consumers all across the planet to produce on demand in their local mega city. So just like conceptually, I'm always pushing for production on demand and not the word printing. Now, another thing that I'm feeling, if you go to the consumer, you think about production on demand, creator economy. Like if you go back 10 years and you think about, what did I need as an entrepreneur to get started? Well, you needed a big expensive server. You needed to build your own payment platform. You needed to build your own web pages. You need to have your own engineers. And now you have, I just spoke to one person yesterday, traveled in the Chinese market last 2 weeks. He met a number of small entrepreneurs, 1 or 2 people, doing 5 to 15 roughly million euros on those 2 alone by engaging with consumers all across the planet, also partly using Gelato. So what is it that, as creators and entrepreneurs are moving into the print industry or the production on demand industry? What type of power, what type of tools are we giving these entrepreneurs, and who will fulfill them? This industry is standing before unprecedented growth because it's us that will fulfill them. We will do that product on demand. And so if you think about the creator economy, let's just relate this to the music industry. Everyone has heard about Spotify. Everyone has heard about iTunes. And you think about the music industry and the size of the music industry, it's basically been more or less $40 billion for the last 10 years in total. You then think about digital printing. When I started the company, it was about $80 billion. Now it's like $200 to $250 billion, depending on who you ask. So we've added a number of music industries in an industry that's called printing that both of my sisters think is dying, right? So I think if we reflect upon why is it growing so fast, it's because of the creator economy. It's because we give a single entrepreneur in Seattle or in London or in Oslo access to tools that they have never, ever been able to access. So I would also, on top of all of that, you go to the consumer. What is the consumer now feeling? Rick spoke about the administration in the US. Well, the trade wars aren't negative for the print industry. At least not for the digital print industry, because you can equal trade wars with growth in local production, growth in local demand. And so all of a sudden we're sitting with global tensions. Who would ever think in 2025 we would sit and have these discussions? So you also have like global macro trends that is super powerful for everyone on the webinar, everyone that is listening in this space. We are the ones, if we work together, that will translate consumer demand, consumer creativity, entrepreneurs all across the planet. We translate that into real physical product produced in Seattle, London, or Oslo. So I am like, just objectively, if you look at the size of the industry, the growth of the industry, the consumer demand, the power of technology, the global tensions, I don't think we've ever in the digital print industry have stood before such growth opportunity.
Yeah, and as you said, that kind of maybe trade wars or change in tone. You mentioned sustainability, maybe being temporarily under pressure in the US because of politics and trade wars with China. And what you're saying really is that the enabling power and usability and access that in essence software and online platforms have, and the intelligence and AI behind all of this as well, of course, actually provides very fast solutions to that. And actually, if we think round it, not least, I mean, look at the inauguration of Trump. Who was in the front row? They're all tech billionaires, right? So, you know, I'm just really sort of reinforcing what you're saying there, and I think you're right. I think what you were saying, Henrik, in terms of the printing industry being rather in love with just talking about machinery too much and about what the machines can do, which is quite a mechanical, frankly, way of thinking, or the mode of thinking. The mode of thinking perhaps need to evolve to, okay, have your machine, but the mode of thinking is let's talk about the clever technology that can power it, and also more importantly power your business from a more granular and perspective, and really connect you for the future. With that in mind, really, I guess what you're saying there is a change in thinking, and often we think of a term I think we use for perhaps the generation that is a digital native. What lessons do you think can these traditional print businesses learn from digital native companies to remain competitive in this fast evolving environment? Is that Rick? Would you like to jump in on that one?
Sure,
Mm,
I think there's several, right? And just to also build on what Henrik was
mm,
saying, I think as an industry we tend to be a little insular, right? And so we tend to think of, hey, we're printers, so we print stuff.
mm,
Well, really, we're creating personalized products, and
mm,
personalization is a bigger market, quite frankly, than print. But how do you personalize a product? What will you print on it? To answer your question, as you make this transition, right? This whole industry is going through a transition. It's going through the transition of analog into digital. It's going through the transition of large orders into small orders. It's going through the transition of driving high technology in order to produce efficiently and produce locally. So it's got a lot of transitions that are going on at once. If you're still running a traditional print shop and you're still producing in the old-fashioned way of taking an order, writing up a job, and putting it in place, there's a lot of opportunities in order to take those and turn them into programs and start to manufacture them and provide the cost benefits internally, as well as the cost benefits to your customer, which they're increasingly demanding. I'll give an example. I'm a fractional COO for Bennett as well, and we're already leveraging the API-driven storefront model directly into Connect in order to streamline what was previously 40 to 50 hours of CSR time to enter jobs and a lot of tracking of those jobs manually through the shop. Today, we accept them. They get automatically done in pre-press. They get automatically sent to a press. They get automatically produced, and they get automatically shipped, all on a single platform. So it really makes a huge difference in the profitability of that, and has made us increase margins. And we get to
mm.
share some of that with the customer as well, which makes the customer more sticky. So that's just an example of the kind of transition that's occurring. Um, and in doing so, you also get to change your interaction with the customer from I'm producing a product that you've specified for me to let me consult with you to help you create a program that's going to be more effective in converting your sales, more effective in increasing your sales, more effective in promoting your products, whatever you're working on with them. So I think there's a huge opportunity for the market that's yeah.
And so, you know, some of the things you're talking about, I'm not a printer, so I haven't run a print shop and I haven't really sort of used software in order to do that. But I do use a lot of software that suddenly I'm able to use for my, you know, whether it's design based or whether it's to do with communications or whatever, or websites and so on. And I found the intuitive nature of it and the fact it's continually evolving quite liberating, and it gives me control. It's not, I don't have a degree in computer science, but I don't need one. I'm semi-literate, but I'm not brilliant by any stretch. How difficult is it for someone who might be a traditional printer, doesn't really know software, doesn't really a digital native, is it? It's quite intuitive to use. It's quite simple to use. How hard is it? Hmm.
It's incredibly simple to use, which is fantastic, right? I mean,
Hmm.
and if you think about our industry in general, um, yes, we wrote a whole bunch of software, people like me, quite frankly. So I wrote a lot of software in my past for the print industry myself. Am I a real software developer? No, I did it because I had to. So I learned how to write software. It wasn't easy to use. It was challenging, and got ever more expensive to maintain. So having something like Connect, where you can just
Hmm.
use it as a service and incredibly easy to use throughout each step of the process. And it's adapting at a crazy pace. So, I'll give another example. Most of the people on the call know about peak. So, as we lead up to Christmas, the orders quadruple 5 times inside of your shop. Uh, there's always challenges that are in place. This year at Bennett, we really thought it would be fantastic for us to have a better report that was in the cell where we were actually producing the work, so the workers could see how they were producing. We called up the gelato people on Friday, and on Monday we had the report on the wall. And it increased our productivity about 5 or 6% just by getting that report.
Hmm.
So that kind of adaptivity, I can tell you in the old days, I would have called my developer and they would have said, I'm really busy, Rick.
Yeah.
How about next peak?
Yeah. It kind of gets around the frailty of humans and the speed to which you're going to have to wait, for somebody else to do the job. And it's exciting when you get that control back, I would imagine. And the granularity and the fact and the analytics, they're addictive, right? Analytics are addictive, I think.
Well,
The more,
they're
yeah,
critical in running a business today, especially in this
yeah.
market.
Yeah. Like you say, margins are critical. Also, love what you said about the personalization industry, by the way. But anyway, let's sort of move on. So, um, I think you kind of covered that kind of digital native question there, really, in terms
Uh,
of.
Just
Hmm,
one thing, Marcus, which I think is important to say.
okay.
So when I was in Tele2, UMTS 3D services came about. We actually believed that we also could produce content. We tried to do radio shows, we tried to do TV shows. I couldn't get my mother to watch it. Okay. So
Okay.
this industry, since I started, too many people in this industry believe that you can do everything. And the fact that you need to hone in on your core competence, I think is vastly underrated. So if you go back to Microsoft and you look at the whole evolution of Microsoft, they basically built an operating system. If you are a hospital, if you are a gaming company, if you are a clothing store company, why should you also build the software to power your core business? What is your core competence? So there is some misconception, and partly it is caused by the lack of easy to use software. Now, don't take my word for it, but you should listen to the users of GelatoConnect. But I think that if this industry learns how to focus on the core competence, like if you are a producer, if you're a PSP and you do that incredibly well, you run a super, super efficient production hub and you expand into new product categories and you leverage the full power of your people and your core competence, but you let software, just like in all other industries. It's not like a software company becomes a car manufacturing company. And it's not like a car manufacturing company all of a sudden says, I'm going to build an accounting system. But in this industry, so many PSPs think that they can do absolutely everything. And this is actually turning out to become a big problem for us.
Hmm.
Because as they do that, we are not performing, we are not delivering to the e-commerce industry and to the creator economy. Because we need to
Hmm.
dispatch on time, we need to have low error rates, we need to always be in stock, we need to be shipping with address labels and full tracking, and like that is a software problem. Now, we don't know anything about production. We don't own a printer. We don't own a print machine. We focus on software. And if we as an industry can learn to love core competence, I think we will increase our growth, but more importantly, really explode the profit margins. And we see that. I mean, ESP presented, ESP is a 20 million euro production hub at PSP in the UK. And within their digital production, they have increased their bottom line 6 times since they moved over to GelatoConnect. So that is an example of a PSP that just hones in on core competence. This is what we're good at. This is what Gelato is good at. And some would then say, well, I don't want to become an Uber driver. Uber driver, there are many people that are building a giant business based upon the technology that Uber is delivering. In the same way as there are many people that are leasing out their apartments or houses or over Airbnb and building fantastic businesses based upon that. So I would argue that the growth opportunity will be unlocked the more acceptance and the more we can embrace the concept of core competence.
And I guess so what you're saying there's twofold, the nature of platforms and communities and how it can just unlock a whole host of new opportunities, but also a lot of printers, going back to what both of you said, is they tend to try or had in the past tried to solve the problem themselves with software. And the problem with that is I suppose you get one machine and it works well with this bit of software, then you get another machine, but you need a different bit of software for that. Those two bits of software don't necessarily communicate with each other, and then you get another bit, and then you end up with all these silos and you're closed off, and you're then becoming a slave to the software rather than the other way around, right?
Very much. The average print shop has somewhere between 4 and 8 software packages just to run their production, and they were forced, right, to write their own software. But I was thinking about this during the summit. You know, a lot of times we've written our own software because that's the only choice we had. There wasn't software. In the old days, by the way, printers built their own machines because there were no machines. But, you know, if I said to you today, hey, I'm going to start a print shop and I'm going to build my own printer, you'd raise your eyebrows a bit like that, Marcus.
Yeah.
But we don't raise the eyebrow when we say we're going to build my own software.
No.
And I would also say that, you know, take a couple of examples that just pops up in my head of companies that have strayed away from their core competence. You can take Nokia from mobile dominance to complete irrelevance. You have another Yahoo, and they tried to do absolutely everything, and they ended up nowhere. And so, you know, and so
why? Because they failed to adapt.
Well, I think that, I mean, there are people much smarter than me that can give you a better answer. But I would just say that I think both companies didn't hone in on their core competence. They tried to go outside of their core competence and do things that they were not experts at doing. So it's something that I think the industry has so much growth potential. And I just want us to untap that growth potential.
Yeah. I sense you're a bit frustrated because I think the rest of the world is collaborating. The software is built on collaboration, and I think the print industry really struggles with that, and culturally in a way that I can't collaborate with this guy. He's a competitor. They might get something that they steal from me. I get a little bit of sense of that, and that maybe is a generational thing. It may be something you had a fantastic event at the summit, so they're all collaborative type people. It's a way of thinking. I'm determined to get you onto the summit now. You see, the GelatoConnect Summit, which was a fantastic event last week. Really interesting conversation so far. Obviously, you both attended and presented that, and you had a fantastic event. You had a few light bulb moments yourself, and I'm sure other people did too, who were there. What do you think they were really? What were these kind of like key takeaways from the summit, from your perspectives, gentlemen?
Well, that is much warmer in Madrid than in Oslo and Norway. And I heard many people say, finally, we get away from the snow. No, but I think that, again, it's not about gelato. It is about the industry. It is about where we can take the growth in this industry. And what I felt on that summit was a lot of humility, because you have some of the absolute leading companies, the thought leaders, from a production standpoint, flying all the way to Madrid, spending 2 days with us there. And for me, I feel that we got this really good input and guidance from the participants, the PSPs. I think it's important to say we do not in Gelato believe that we sit on all the answers. But I know that when we collaborate, when we work together with our customers, the PSPs, we take really good decisions. So the event was also very much about listening, seeking to understand what are the challenges that they stand before, how can we help them solve that, and then in addition, I would just like to point out one highlight for me was the eye-opening moments when we spoke about how we apply AI. And again, it comes back to core competence. Like, just to give you one example, we in our engineering teams in Gelato, we have an ambition now, end of March, in Q1 2025, to have 75% of our code base built by AI. Now, if you go back 12 months, that was 0. So what is happening here? Like, again, who knows really, the depth of AI and how to unlock it? Who knows how to produce? And sometimes it feels like gathering like that, meeting in a room and being able to spend 2 days speaking about this, it is incredibly educational on both ends. And that was, some of the highlights, in addition to the weather, that I felt. Rick, what about you?
Well, I think to build on what you were saying, the two things. One, pulling the community together, and as many of you know, I'm also on the D-Scoop board, which is also, based on collaboration and community, and having that also showing up as part of the Gelato group, and having all those business leaders all in one place and really learning from each other. Everybody's doing really interesting things. All right. They're changing how orders are coming in. They're changing how they're producing them. They're changing how they interact with their customers. And to Henrik's point, to see how Gelato is moving with them, listening to them and listening to us and saying, oh, I think I understand what you have. And then moving so quickly was a key takeaway. And yes, I learned a lot about AI last week. And it's something that I follow. But quite frankly, the way it's being implemented in Connect, I'll give a quick example. I have a customer, they're enabling one of the e-commerce companies. There's tens of thousands of products. That typically takes months, if not years, to put in place in the software. Gelato created AI agents that did it in 35 seconds. Literally, they accelerated the way that we onboard a new customer exponentially. What does that mean for me as a business owner? That means I'm getting to revenue faster. That means my customer is happy. That means I'm producing it more efficiently. Pretty good for a manufacturing company. And I learned about that at the summit. So
Yeah. And that's interesting. Everything's so much online like we're doing now, but connecting in person, that's something that you still feel is incredibly important, isn't it? In terms of really fully comprehending, connecting, listening, having time out. It's a key part of any community, I would imagine.
I think of it as the incidental interactions, right? It's great to have a focused discussion, but at the same time, when you're in person, you get to have that incidental interaction where you get the aha moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about Ed Catmull, co-founder of Pixar, he wrote a book, Creativity Inc., right? And he said when they built the new headquarter, they made sure that all the restrooms and all the coffee rooms were co-located at the far end of this huge building, because that's kind of where people met and exchanged ideas, and that was what I felt on this summit as well. But another thing, I was thinking about an analogy with Netflix, the creators of content, and the end consumers. In a way, what I feel is we have the ability to bring a lot of what the consumers are telling us to the industry, but then also take what a lot of the industry leaders are feeling back to us and give it to the consumers. And I think if you reflect upon, the Netflix journey, like having that triangle between the software platform, the streaming platform, the content creators, the large content creators, and then the end consumers, and getting that triangle to power up, I feel that is what is happening now in the digital print industry, which, by the way, and again, is like 10 times larger than music.
Yeah, and that's surprising, isn't it? Given the sense that we just assume music is mega, mega, mega bigger, but it isn't, is it? It's like you said, the print industry potential.
Well, it is mega, mega, mega big. It's just that digital printing is mega, mega, mega big.
Yeah, no, absolutely. With anything that out the summit you were announcing, or I think really sort of we kind of touched on it already, but GelatoConnect's obviously machine agnostic end to end. Um, were there any examples perhaps of speakers that were there? I know you mentioned a couple of ESP, I know he was there and so on, that were could break down a bit the positioning that helps printers compete perhaps more effectively.
Rick, you want to take it, or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, from the speaker perspective, yes, there were a lot of industry leaders speaking about how GelatoConnect had helped them in their businesses in very specific ways. Also in ways that it was inspiring them to transform their business more quickly. So I don't know that I want to mention any specifics, but yes, Paul Hudson, for example, from Hudson Printing in Salt Lake, spoke very, very inspirationally. He's also a fellow snow lover, so that always, since he put it in the context of snow, always inspires me.
And doesn't work in Madrid, Rick. Doesn't work in Madrid.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You need to go to Norway or Seattle or Salt Lake City.
Or Salt Lake. Or Simon, Simon really talked a lot about in the industry and the fact that there really are going to be winners and losers, and he's excited to be one of the winners because he's an early adopter of GelatoConnect, and he's seeing
that's the exciting thing, isn't it?
He's seeing
yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but I was just saying it's exciting because it's still at it's not an early stage in terms of technicals on the technical side, but it is really in terms of the advantages it can give for people that take on board this opportunity, right? It's kind of accelerates their progression and development, right? And it's still that's exciting.
When you think about the margin increases you get, and when you think about the speed in which you can onboard new customers, those are clear advantages for my business, right? Those are clear advantages that allow me to be one of the winners. And the industry continues to consolidate. So it's continues to consolidate at roughly half the number of printers every 2 years. So there are going to be winners and losers, and that's okay. And the ones that win are going to be the ones that adapt rapidly to the things we've been talking about today, to serving the creator economy, to being highly customer focused, to being highly efficient and focused on your core business, and who are implementing the technologies they need to service their customers seamlessly.
I would just add, Rick, that to that notion about winners and losers, I would say losing today in the print industry and the digital print industry is self-selected. Because if you think about the growth, if you think about the opportunity, you think about the macro trends, it is self-selected. And some people will not like me saying that, but I fundamentally believe that there is no zero-sum game in this industry. Everyone can win. but you need to adapt. You need to change. If you continue like Blockbuster to ship those DVDs, when you have a company down the block moving into streaming, and you insist that I'm going to stick to my old way of doing business, you will lose. But I think that it's a very important, for me at least, message that there is so much growth for all of us that no one actually needs to lose out. And you said previously, Marcus, it feels like you're frustrated, Henrik. I'm not frustrated.
Well, excited, but frustrated. People aren't getting it quick enough.
I am more excited. I'm like, you only live once, and I'm a firm believer in leveraging every day, and hopefully, if we work hard, we will make this place a bit of a better place before we move on. So it's more like I'm very eager to, get all in this industry to move towards winning. Because that's what the consumers want.
Absolutely.
And I think you're right. It is self-selecting, right? When you really look at the dynamics of the industry, there's a lot of aging demographics of the people who are owning print shops. And it is, many of them don't want to make that adaptation. So they're self-selecting to reduce. And that's okay. It means there's more growth and more opportunities for those who do adapt.
What would you say to those that are perhaps listening and let's be honest, the VUCA world is a real thing, disruptive, unpredictable. It threatens supply chains, right, and procurement, and people being able to deliver to their product in certain ways. And I say people, I mean brands and brands and retailers and so on. How does perhaps GelatoConnect address those challenges of managing things like global supply chains and ensuring fulfillment? What's the story there, particularly for micro orders?
I mean, first of all, we play a very, very small role. I wish it was bigger, but in the global supply chain world, we are very, very, very small. And so for us, it's a matter of supporting a more broader macro shift where you move from centralized mass production that is incredibly inefficiently distributed across the planet. You produce in one country, you ship to 100. That is insanity. We've been doing that for 100 years. And now we have the technology to do it locally. I wouldn't even say in the countries. I would use the word megacities. Because if you think about it, I think the future of local production is in the megacities. So to the people that are stagnant, I mean, change is it sounds trite, but literally change is the only constant. I mean, we in Gelato, we read a book, The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. And, one thing that he says, this book, by the way, has shaped NVIDIA and shaped Apple and both of their founders quite profoundly. But one thing that they say in that book is that if your software allows previously non-existing players in the ecosystem to access software and punch above their weight, you're changing the fundamentals of the industry. That's what happened when NVIDIA went into the car industry or when NVIDIA went into gaming. All of a sudden, you could reimagine what you could do as a small gaming company once you got hold of the NVIDIA chips. I think Gelato is the operating system for this industry. And I think if we embrace that, and I'm not saying we're done. I'm not saying we have all the answers to 1,000 questions. By no means. I'm not saying this is in an arrogant way. It might sound arrogant. It's not my intent. I'm just saying that we firmly believe that our core competence is software. And if we play that way, if you're a, relatively speaking, small PSP, 1 million in revenue, 5 million in revenue, 10 million in revenue, and you deploy GelatoConnect, all of a sudden, you can make that giant leap. You can start to punch above your weight. And when you have companies all across the planet that are able to do that, you build new markets. Because again, it is not a matter of consumer demand. We have abundance in consumer demand. And with all the political divides and trade barriers and trade wars, like, it will only go one way. So again, I'm hugely excited about where we're taking this. And to the ones that are fighting it, it is impossible to fight the tide or gravity. And it's not us. Again, this has nothing to do with gelato, nothing to do with the industry, but everything to do with the consumer.
The consumer is in power and is forcing this change. It's not the politicians in a way, really, is it? Let's be honest.
Nope.
They affect confidence, but ultimately the consumer is driving what they want and when they want it, and it's micro orders. And I like what you said before: personalization, production on demand. It's an interesting way of using words to redefine perhaps the next generation that you're leading in terms of printing. Any kind of case studies or any recent success stories, perhaps, that GelatoConnect has improved, in terms of operational efficiency and solving some of those problems?
I think we have many. Rick, you want to share Bennett?
Sure. Why don't I'll share Bennett. I also work with many other companies. So here's a great one. I mentioned this briefly before, but this company was 40 some storefronts, and those storefronts were connected to various corporate marketing departments. So you get to order through a storefront, and essentially what they were doing is writing up the job ticket for each one and entering them as jobs. Gelato looked at what they were doing, integrated their storefront directly into Connect, reduced the CSR time by well over 40 hours a week. So, and when I say that, they're also producing those products automatically now, which makes a big difference. I mentioned the onboarding of new customers. That's crazy how much faster that's gotten. And here's a third one. One of our customers, one of the GelatoConnect customers that I work with a lot, 20% growth without hiring any additional people and increasing their bottom line by double. They get to reinvest that back in the business in driving their core competency versus having a whole bunch of extra people producing less work. To Henrik's point, the problem is not getting the volumes. The volumes are there. The challenge is you need to adapt how you're accepting, manufacturing, and shipping those orders, and how you're serving your customer, how you're interacting with your customer, and quite frankly, who your customer is.
Absolutely. And a skill shortage issue as well, right? So it's helping there. It's not about getting rid of people. It's about being able to add productivity, because getting the right people has got harder and harder, right? That's a global issue.
Exactly. Right. It allows you to have also fewer high-skilled people. When you think about the old days of printing, it was a very craft-based business where you had craftsmen who had, 20, 30 years of experience running a press. Today, that's not the case. Today, increasingly, it's, a few high-skilled people, and then automation is driving more and more repeatability throughout your facility. That is a big benefit because, quite frankly, finding high-skilled people in this industry is challenging.
Absolutely, yeah. And so finally, gentlemen, sort of looking ahead to the future. I mean, you kind of touched on a number of different things already around the future, and you're obviously clearly very, very passionate and excited and optimistic about it. But if there's one key message about embracing new technologies, such as GelatoConnect, that you'd like our delegates to remember, what would it be?
See, I don't think that it is about gelato. I don't think it is about GelatoConnect. I don't think it's about the digital print industry. I really, really believe it's about the consumer. Like, if you think about IKEA, there's a great podcast named Acquired, and they double-clicked on IKEA. And I recommend everyone to just listen to all the episodes there. But anyway, how important has the hot dog been for $1 for IKEA? I mean, consumerism is not that complicated many times. Consumerism is understanding the underlying consumer need. And we all know, I have 3 kids. I know the need when I come to IKEA, and I like that hot dog. So it's about this industry understanding what is our hot dog? What is it that we need to provide to the consumer market that everyone understands and everyone loves to use? And I think we speak far too little about the hot dog for $1 and how we can drive massive adaptation and incredible exponential growth in the digital print industry. I'm not evangelizing, I'm not exaggerating. It is right in front of us. We just need to go out there and capture it. And how we do that? Let's focus on our core competence.
Okay, thank you for that, Henrik. Rick, finishing up. Final
Well,
thought. Anything you want to add to that, or?
Henrik's last sentence is where I'm going to start, right? You need to future-proof your business, and to do that, you've got to focus your resources on what you can be best in class at. The world is going to get more and more complicated with the increase of AI. It's the pace of change is moving much faster than most of us can even comprehend. And if you are able to focus your efforts on what you can be best in class at and make partners with those that are best in class at the things that you need, you're going to thrive, right? You're going to be the ones who win. So I'm not going to be specific about, hey, you have to do this and this. It's more about focus on what you're going to be best at. If you're not going to be best at it, partner with somebody who is. Economy has changed. It's much more of a collaborative economy than it is a competitive economy.
Yeah, that's a fundamental shift.
Amen.
So I'm really excited. I want to join Gelato. I'm not a printer personally. I'm talking about everybody listening. How do they get in? How do they join the GelatoConnect community? Where do they need to go? What's the website?
You can meet us on LinkedIn. I think everyone is listed there. Just reach out, send us a LinkedIn message, or go to our webpage. There is a direct link to our team members. So, but we're also, we're going to Hunkler here in a couple of weeks, and we're always in different industry events. So, but just reach out.
Yeah, so it's gelato.com, and I believe there's a tab for GelatoConnect, and then people can reconnect or connect with you via then. So, gentlemen, thank you both for joining us. It's been a great hour. It's flown by quite quickly. Really exciting to hear the story and also to see where it's going and your vision in the future. So thanks for joining us today, Henrik and Rick.
Thank you for having us.
And look forward to hopefully actually meeting you in person one day and maybe coming to your summit next year.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.